to Making It Great. I'm your hostess, Melissa McNeil Hammonds. And today we have a great show for you guys. We'll be right back with our musical guests.
Traveling on this road, traveling for way too long, praying that things will change so I can sing a brand new song, a song that speaks of joy, a song that speaks of peace, a song that's different so my mind can be at ease. I'll wait, patiently on the Lord to help me change, yeah, 'cause I'm real tired of this storm, but I will wait, patiently on the Lord and stay in my place, so I can make it through this.
To do this right, ready to endure this fight, do what I gotta do to change, so I can make it through the night, say what I need to say, do what I gotta do, go where I need to go, oh Lord, just help me make it, oh, patiently. Don't wanna be the same no more. Don't wanna be the same no more. I'll wait. Oh, I'll wait. On the Lord to stay in my place. Ooh, so I can make it through this. I gotta wait. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait.
Welcome back. We just had a great musical performance. I'm your hostess, Melissa McNeil Hammonds, and you're watching Making It Great. Coming up next, we're going to have an insightful, thought-provoking interview with attorney Craig Babb about unlocking wealth, especially in poor African American communities. We'll be back. Hello, this is Melissa McNeil Hammonds, and I'm the new hostess for Making It Great. Today I have with me Craig Babb with Alabama Appleseed. And Craig Babb, you're with Alabama Appleseed, you're an attorney, and what does attorneys have to do with apple seeds? Are you farmers or what?
Well, first, don't hold it against me that I'm a lawyer. Alabama Appleseed Center for Law and Justice is one of 17 social justice centers that were founded by the Harvard Law School class of 1958 reunion. And these lawyers, who were all very successful, said, we need to do something just other than write checks. Yes. And so they came up with the idea of Appleseed, which is planting a seed of justice and helping it to grow. Yes. And so the 17 centers around the country, including one here in Montgomery, focus primarily on issues that are important to lower income communities in our state. We have our board is in the state. We raise a lot of our money here in Alabama. But we also work nationwide. And a couple of years ago when I first started, it was right after Hurricane Katrina. And so we worked with Appleseed centers in Louisiana, and Georgia and Texas. So we work across state lines when it's important, but we try to focus on issues that are really important within our own communities, and in this case here in Alabama, statewide.
Yes, and I think some of the projects that you guys work on at Appleseed, one in particular, which you'll talk about today, is called air property. Now, what is air property? Does that have something to do with air quality or people who fly, or what is air property?
I thought the same thing. I went down to the coast after Katrina and was speaking to a pastor from Ohio who was down helping rebuild houses in Bayou La Batterie. And we were talking, and I said, Appleseed has done this big report of what happens to the millions of people who left the coast. How do they get back getting education? How do they get homes, health care? And he said, well, I can give you some answers to that, but it seems to me that the one thing you need to look at is air property. And I hadn't a clue. I don't remember anything about it from law school. And I thought he was talking about air rights over a building.
Yes.
And I wrote that down. I still have it in my notes at AIR. And he said, no, we're talking HEIR. And that's land that's passed down from one generation to the next without a valid will. And as a consequence, there can be often dozens, if not hundreds, of people that own this land. And we'll show you a little chart a little bit later on in our discussion. Sure. But what I learned in this is that after Katrina, on the Alabama coast, there were thousands of families who had lost their houses and tried to get some money from FEMA or the Department of Housing and Urban Development, where most of the rebuilding money came from. And they couldn't get any of this money. And they couldn't get any of this money because they had air property, which means they don't have clear title to their land. And by this I mean that let's take an example of great-great-grandma and grandpa, and they owned 100 acres of land 100 years ago. And they passed, and they conveyed that 100 acres intestate without a valid will to their 4 children.
Yes.
And their 4 children inherited that land, and their 4 children each had 4 children. And they passed on that land to their 4 children, and it just kept on generation after generation after generation. And one family that I worked with just outside of Selma, an older woman there, was one of 188 heirs to one piece of land.
Wow. And
it was a small piece of land. And the bottom line is you're never going to be able to do anything with it.
That's right.
And that land is going to get lost.
Yes.
And let me give you an example of this. About in the last 65 to 70 years, about 95% of all African American owned farmland in the United States has been lost.
Wow.
Now, it's been lost to various legal procedures. It's been lost because somebody will buy up a lot of small farms and then create a big farm, so it will look like you've lost some land. But that 95% of African American owned farmland has gone, and it's out of those families' hands forever.
Wow.
Another example that we found in working with some people in Calhoun County, where Anniston, Alabama is. And we did some research there, and I won't go into the details of what constituted the research, but at the end of the day, we found that out of about 45,000 residential parcels of land in that one county, about 700 appeared to be air property, which is land that the owners didn't have clear title to. And that 771 parcels had a value, a tax appraised value, which is always the really low value, had the tax appraised value in excess of $31 million. Now, that's a very conservative estimate because the tax appraised value is much lower than the fair market value. In other words, what anybody here could pay for a piece of land.
That's right.
But we took that very conservative number, and if we extrapolated that statewide to all 67 counties in Alabama, that value, very, very conservatively, would be $2.3 billion worth of land, most of it owned by lower income, often African American owned families, and they can't do anything with this land. They can't get a loan on the land because they don't have clear title. If you go to the bank and you want to borrow some, get a mortgage on your house, or borrow some money to send a kid to school, the bank says, well, let me see the title to your land. You go, well, great grandma had the title of the land and we don't have any title to the land. And they say, well, sir, I'm sorry, we're not going to give you that loan because you could leave town and we never see our money again. So the real heartache of owning air property, and there's a positive to it later down the road, but the heartache is folks that own this land oftentimes live on it. It's been in their families for generations. Oftentimes after Reconstruction in African American communities, these were the first families who could own land. And by owning land, they became really important parts of their community, and land ownership had a lot to do with the development of the civil rights progress in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, because a lot of the people behind that who lived in the South helped to bankroll some of those activities because they were landowners. They had clear title to their land, and they could borrow money from it, and they can make that land work for them. If you don't have clear title to it, it's not working for you. It's sitting there. And so much you'll drive through rural Alabama, and you'll see large swaths of land, and it's pretty clear from the work that we've done around the state that land is owned by people who don't have clear title to it and can't do anything with it. It just is sitting there.
Yes.
And it's sitting there until somebody like me wearing a pinstripe suit is going to come along, and I'm going to be a real estate developer.
That's right.
Which I'm not, please. And I'm going to go to your family.
Yes.
And a bunch of you live around, let's say you live around here in Montgomery, and I say, I see you own some land outside of town, and I'd like to buy your land.
Yes.
And you go, well, Mr. Babb, that's very nice of you, but we don't want to sell it. We're all doing very well, thank you. We don't even live on the land, but we go out there every fall for a family reunion and a turkey shoot, and it's just fine with us. But I really want this land. So what am I going to do? I'm going to find one of your relatives someplace, probably the one that's maybe serving in Iraq, or somebody who moved over to North Dakota.
Yes.
Why ever in the world they want to do that? And I'm going to find that person, and I'm going to say, Ms. Jones, you own a little piece of land down here in Montgomery, Alabama, and I'd like to pay you $100 or $500 or $1,000, whatever it is that I can arrange, to buy out your interest in this land. And when I buy out that interest in the land, it's not because I want to buy some little piece of land. Once I buy out that interest in the land, and let's say we've got examples of this, it's a 1/100th interest in this piece of land. I'm going to go into court, and I'm going to file a lawsuit called a partition lawsuit. And without going into details, I'm going to force the sale of that land against your interest. Let's say you've got 100 relatives.
Yes.
Not one of you wants to sell this land. And I'm going to go into that court, and probably you're not going to have a lawyer.
Yes.
You're not going to have much money. I'm going to have both.
Yes.
I'm going to force the sale of the land, and it's gone forever from your family.
Wow. So let's just back up so we can make sure we're hearing everything that you're saying, because you're giving us some great
But I mention
information.
that because your example is that there are indeed things you can do.
Yes.
If somebody came and said, I want to buy some of your land, number one, you can say no. But if that person bought that land, you've got to get together with all the rest of your family members. And you've got to say, we don't take care of our land nearly as good as we take care of our car or our teeth. I mean, my example is, if you get a toothache and you don't do anything about it, and it keeps getting bad and bad and bad, and finally you've got to go into the dentist, and the dentist has got to take your tooth out.
Yes.
The fact that you lost your tooth is not the dentist's fault. It's your fault. And we've got to begin to take care of our land the same way. And we do that by all of us who have some interest in the land get together and talk about it.
Yes.
open a bank account where we can put money in that bank account to pay the taxes on the land, because oftentimes that land gets lost because we don't pay the taxes.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so if you have a bank account and you put the taxes in there, and all of us, this is going to sound strange coming from a lawyer, but the most important issue here has nothing to do with the law. It has to do with families. And it has to do with talking to our families. And I don't know about you, but I'm told in some families there's one person who's usually a problem. My family says that that's me. But, and that person is the person who never shows up at family reunions, who doesn't want to play ball, who, if everybody wants to do something, they say no. And if everybody doesn't want to do something, they say, well, I want to do it. So you got to begin to love that person to death. Don't forget their birthday.
Yes.
Invite them over to Christmas. Give them lots of presents. Do as much as you can do,
Yes. Yes.
because I promise you, that person, maybe not during our lifetime, but that person and their kids,
Yes.
children, are going to be sort of creating disorder within the family. And the most difficult thing within any family is to talk to each other.
Yes.
And so on the one hand, you want to talk to your family, you want to be family members, you want to share. On the other hand, land is business, and you got to deal with it as business. And if somebody says, well, can I, I'm going overseas to serve in the Marines, can I store my car on your lot? And you can go, sure, but we're going to write out a little agreement, because it's something dealing with my land. And anything dealing with your real property, with your land, that is not written down means nothing. Means nothing. And so even if it's that person storing their car on your land, have a little written, you could put your car on my land for the next year for $1 a year, and then that's fine. Then you've got an agreement, and if anything happens, you know what's going on with it. But if somebody, one of my examples is, if, as is often the case in families, an older member of the family who was the last living, the oldest member of the family, who,
Yes.
let's say, is living on this 100 acres, and she says, well, I don't have a lot more days to go before I go home, but when I do, I want you to have my land, Melissa.
Yes.
Does that mean anything? Nope,
Nope.
because it's not written down. It's where her heart is.
Yes.
And it's an important thing to know, but what we all need to do at that point is, Grandma, we're going to sit down and we're going to do a will. We've got to do this. We've got to do this.
Yes.
And that's the other important thing that we all have to do is most of us don't do wills. And you know why we don't?
Why not?
Well, everybody I think here probably knows why you don't do a will. Because if you don't do a will, that means you're not going to die.
Yes.
Right? Okay,
Yes.
there you go.
Yes.
You got to do this.
Yes.
And I promise you someday, I'm told, we're all going to die.
Yeah.
So we need to do wills. We need to do wills. We need to take care of our land. And a couple of the other things that we can do in sort of taking care of your land, you can go to the probate judge's office or the land record office
Yes.
and get a copy of all the tax bills that have been paid. These are public documents, because then you can find out to make sure that somebody is paying the taxes on the land.
Yes.
If you don't pay the taxes on the land, after 6 months, you're going to see a notice in the newspaper, and it's going to say, Mr. Babb, you've not paid your taxes. We're going to put your land up for a tax sale. Now, this doesn't mean you actually lose your land. You can still live on your land probably for another 3 or 4 years. But if your land goes to a tax sale, and that means people who are in the business of just buying up tax deeds, and they're going to go in and they're going to, let's say I owe $100 on my land in taxes. They're going to pay that $100, and they'll do it for the next couple of years. And why are they going to do it? Not out of the goodness of their heart, but because they can actually make money off it. And counties don't like to own land that isn't generating taxes. Counties aren't real estate agents. Counties want to collect your taxes and do stuff that counties do with your tax money. Fix the roads, hire police officers, so on. That's what they do. So they want to provide an incentive so that they don't have all of this land sitting around on their desks. So they provide an incentive that if somebody comes along and buys a tax deed, because I've not been paying my taxes, we're going to pay you 12% a year on what you paid back due taxes.
Wow.
So 12% a year on $100 isn't very much money, but here's the rub. We're trying to get this changed in Congress, in the state legislature. Senator Hank Sanders actually has introduced a bill this year, but we're having a hard time with the county commissioners who don't want this to happen. Because what one can do, let's say I bought up that tax deed for back due taxes of $100, and I'm paying that for the next couple of years, I can also pay in 15% of the fair market value of the land. And why would I pay in more than's due? Because I can collect 12% on that additional 15%. So if your land is worth $100,000, 15% is $15,000. 12% on $15,000 a year is big money.
Okay. We'll be right back with Making It Great. Welcome back to Making It Great. I'm your host, Melissa McNeil Hammonds, and I just want to share something with you. Working as a social worker, one of the things that I've seen is depression. Depression, not the depression of a mood, but a depression of a people. And that's why I chose to be a community social worker. Because instead of fishing with nets where I save this family and save that family, I get to save a whole community of people. And so with the information I get, just like with Air Property, instead of coming together as a family where you just sit around and enjoy and laugh and talk and share stories, you can actually make that work for you. Work to alleviate some of all this depression that we have as a people, as a society, where you take that learning who grandmama's mama's mama is, and now taking that and making some money that your whole family can use and grow and do something with. Own things, creating parts, creating a store, creating something that you give back to your community. As you earn money, and we all become entrepreneurs, we all become corporations, and we start taking our land, we start taking our resources, and we do something. We make it great. With that being said, I'm Melissa McNeil Hammonds. You're watching Making It Great. See you next time.